Foreign investment is one of the clearest indicators of where the future is headed. When money moves across borders, it's rarely by chance. Global investors don't just follow hype, they analyze trends, weigh risks, and put their money where they see the greatest potential for long-term growth. And over the past few years, one country has been attracting more attention than ever before: the Philippines. For decades, the Philippines was often overlooked in conversations about Asia's biggest economic opportunities. But that story is changing, and changing fast. Today, the country is no longer viewed as just another emerging market. It's becoming a strategic investment destination, drawing billions of dollars from foreign companies and investors who believe the best is yet to come. So what exactly are they seeing that many people still don't? Why are major global corporations expanding their presence in the Philippines? What makes this nation stand out in an increasingly competitive world? And could the Philippines be on the verge of becoming one of Asia's most important economic success stories?
The answers go far beyond the headlines,
And once you see the full picture, it becomes much easier to understand why foreign investors are making such big bets on the Philippines. But before we reveal the key factors driving this investment boom, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest insights. Now, let's take a closer look at why the world is paying attention to the Philippines. For a long time, the Philippines had a reputation that was both promising and frustrating. On one hand, it had a highly educated workforce, a young population, and billions of dollars flowing into the country every year through overseas remittances. On the other hand, investors often pointed to challenges such as aging infrastructure, complex regulations, and policy uncertainty as reasons to stay cautious. But over the years, something important began to change. Slowly but steadily, the country started strengthening the foundations of its economy. Inflation became more manageable, public finances improved, and the banking sector grew more stable and resilient. At the same time, government leaders introduced reforms aimed at making the Philippines more competitive, more business-friendly, and more attractive to foreign investors. What makes this transformation particularly interesting is that it wasn't the result of one breakthrough moment or a single policy change. Instead, it was built piece by piece over many years. Different administrations, despite their differences, continued pushing efforts to modernize the economy, attract international capital, and improve the overall investment climate. And as those changes began to take hold, global investors started seeing the Philippines through a very different lens. No longer was it simply a country with untapped potential. It was becoming a country that was finally turning that potential into reality. Let's start with what may be the Philippines' greatest long-term advantage: its people. When investors evaluate a country's future, they don't just look at current economic performance. They look at demographics, because demographics often determine where growth will come from over the next decade or century. And this is where the Philippines stands out. While many developed nations are grappling with aging populations and shrinking workforces, the Philippines is moving in the opposite direction. The country has a young, growing population, with a large share of its citizens in their prime working years. And in the years ahead, millions more are expected to join the labor force. Why does this matter so much? Because a young population is one of the strongest drivers of economic growth. It means more workers, more consumers, more entrepreneurs, and more demand for everything from housing and technology to retail and financial services. For foreign investors, that's a powerful combination. On one side, there's access to a growing pool of talent. On the other, there's a rapidly expanding domestic market filled with future customers. But the story doesn't end there. What makes the Philippines especially attractive is not just the size of its workforce, it's the quality of that workforce. The country is home to one of the largest English-speaking populations in Asia, a major advantage in today's global economy. For multinational companies, communication barriers are lower, training is easier, and integration with international operations is far more seamless. Filipino workers have also built a strong reputation for being adaptable, customer-focused, and culturally compatible with Western markets. These qualities have helped the country become a global leader in industries that rely heavily on talent and communication. And as competition for skilled workers intensifies around the world, these advantages become even more valuable. In fact, many investors aren't just looking at the Philippines as a place to do business today, they're looking at it as a country whose workforce could become one of its most important economic assets for decades to come. And that's only the first piece of the puzzle. Next, let's talk about one of the biggest success stories behind the Philippines' economic rise: the booming BPO and service industry. If demographics provide the foundation, the outsourcing sector is one of the clearest examples of that advantage being turned into real economic growth. Over the past 2 decades, the Philippines has transformed itself into one of the world's leading destinations for business process outsourcing, or BPO. What began primarily as customer service and call center operations has evolved into a massive industry supporting some of the world's largest companies. Today, the sector covers far more than customer support. Filipino professionals are providing technical assistance, financial services, healthcare information management, software development, IT solutions, and a growing range of specialized business functions. And this growth didn't happen by accident. Global companies were initially attracted by lower operating costs, but many stayed and expanded for a different reason: the quality of the talent. As businesses worked more closely with Filipino professionals, they discovered a workforce capable of handling increasingly complex and mission-critical tasks. What started as simple outsourcing relationships gradually evolved into long-term strategic partnerships. And that's a very important distinction. Investors are no longer looking at the Philippines as just a place where companies can save money. They're increasingly viewing it as a place where businesses can grow, innovate, and scale their operations with confidence. That shift changes everything. A country known only for low costs can easily be replaced. But a country known for reliability, talent, and operational excellence becomes much harder to ignore. For foreign investors, that sends a powerful message. It suggests stability. It demonstrates scalability. And perhaps most importantly, it signals that the Philippines can remain competitive even as the global economy continues to evolve. At the same time, the rise of digital technologies, remote work, cloud computing, and global business integration is creating even more opportunities for service-based economies. As companies around the world continue searching for skilled talent and efficient operations, the Philippines is positioned to capture an even larger share of that demand. And if current trends continue, the country's role in the global service economy could become even more important in the years ahead. But the BPO industry's success is only one reason investors are paying attention. Attracting foreign investment isn't just about having a strong workforce. Investors also want customers, and that's where another major advantage comes into play: the Philippines' rapidly expanding consumer market. While exports and international business services are important drivers of growth, the country's domestic economy is becoming an increasingly powerful attraction in its own right. The Philippines is home to a large population, and as incomes continue to rise, so does purchasing power. Urbanization is accelerating, lifestyles are changing, and millions of Filipinos are entering the middle class with greater spending capacity than previous generations. For businesses, that's a huge opportunity. More consumers mean greater demand for products, services, housing, entertainment, technology, and financial solutions. And across the country, that demand is becoming increasingly visible. Retail centers are expanding. Restaurants and food chains are growing rapidly. Real estate development continues to reshape major cities. Telecommunications companies are investing heavily in connectivity, and e-commerce platforms are reaching more customers than ever before. In fact, shopping malls in the Philippines have become far more than places to buy products. They're social destinations, entertainment centers, and community gathering spaces that reflect the growing strength of consumer spending. At the same time, online shopping is transforming the way Filipinos buy and sell goods. Improved delivery networks, digital payment systems, and wider internet access are helping fuel the country's digital commerce boom. For foreign investors, all of this creates a compelling opportunity, and that distinction matters. Some economies depend heavily on exports and are therefore more vulnerable to slowdowns in global demand. The Philippines, however, benefits from a strong domestic consumer base that helps keep economic activity moving even when international conditions become more challenging. That combination of external opportunities and internal demand creates a level of balance that investors find extremely attractive. But demographics, talent, and consumer spending aren't the only reasons global capital is flowing into the country. Another factor is something investors have valued for centuries: location. The Philippines sits in one of the most economically dynamic regions on the planet. Geography may seem like a simple advantage, but in today's interconnected economy, it can make a tremendous difference. Located in Southeast Asia, the Philippines is positioned near some of the world's largest and most influential markets, including China, Japan, and South Korea. It is also an active participant in regional economic cooperation through ASEAN, placing it at the center of one of the fastest-growing regions in the world. And that creates opportunities that extend far beyond its own borders. For companies looking to expand across Asia, the Philippines can serve as a strategic base of operations. It offers access to regional supply chains, growing consumer markets, and important trade relationships throughout the region. This has become especially important as global businesses rethink how and where they operate. Over the past several years, many companies have realized the risks of relying too heavily on a single country for manufacturing, sourcing, or operational support. As a result, diversification has become a top priority, and that's creating new opportunities for countries like the Philippines. Rather than replacing existing supply chain hubs, the Philippines is increasingly being viewed as a complementary destination, one that can help companies build more resilient and flexible operations. For investors, that's a powerful advantage. In today's world, diversification isn't just a smart strategy. For many businesses, it's becoming a necessity. And as companies continue searching for reliable alternatives and expansion opportunities across Asia, the Philippines is positioning itself as an increasingly attractive piece of that puzzle. Next, let's talk about infrastructure development and connectivity. For many years, infrastructure has been one of the Philippines' biggest obstacles to economic growth. Heavy traffic congestion, limited transportation networks, and logistical challenges have often increased the cost of doing business and slowed economic activity. To address these issues, the government has made infrastructure development a top priority. Massive investments in roads, bridges, railways, airports, and seaports are transforming the country's connectivity and reducing long-standing bottlenecks. These improvements do more than just make travel easier. They help connect regional economies, boost productivity, and lower operating costs for businesses. For foreign investors, modern infrastructure is a strong signal of the country's commitment to long-term growth and development. While there is still work to be done, the progress achieved in recent years has significantly improved the Philippines' reputation as an investment destination. Another major driver is policy reforms and investment liberalization. Foreign investors are naturally drawn to countries that offer stability, transparency, and clear regulations. Recognizing this, the Philippines has implemented a series of reforms aimed at creating a more business-friendly environment. Foreign ownership restrictions have been relaxed in selected sectors, opening doors for greater international participation. At the same time, tax reforms have lowered corporate tax rates and introduced incentives for businesses operating in priority industries. The government has also worked to simplify procedures, cut red tape, and improve transparency. Together, these reforms make the country more attractive to foreign capital. More importantly, they demonstrate the government's willingness to adapt and compete in an increasingly globalized economy. The emergence of the digital economy is another powerful growth catalyst. As digital technology becomes deeply integrated into everyday life, the Philippines is rapidly evolving into a thriving digital marketplace. With widespread internet access and one of the world's most active social media populations, the country offers fertile ground for technology-driven industries. Sectors such as fintech, e-commerce, online education, and digital services are experiencing remarkable growth. Startups are securing venture capital funding, while established businesses are investing heavily in digital transformation to improve efficiency and expand their reach. For foreign investors, the digital economy presents exciting opportunities. Unlike traditional industries that often require large upfront investments, digital businesses can scale quickly and serve millions of customers with relatively lower capital requirements. Combined with the country's young and tech-savvy population, the Philippines is well positioned to become a major player in the digital age. Equally important is the Philippines' resilience and adaptability. Every economy faces challenges, and the Philippines is no exception. Natural disasters, global economic uncertainties, and social issues continue to present risks. Yet, resilience remains one of the country's greatest strengths. Time and again, the Philippine economy has demonstrated its ability to recover from setbacks and sustain growth. Strong domestic consumption, steady remittances from overseas Filipino workers, and a diversified economic structure have all contributed to this resilience. For investors, this is an important consideration. Long-term investments require confidence in an economy's ability to withstand challenges and continue moving forward. The Philippines' track record provides exactly that reassurance. Another emerging trend is the rise of regional growth centers. While Metro Manila remains the country's primary economic engine, growth is no longer confined to the capital. Cities such as Cebu, Davao, and Clark are rapidly developing into major centers of business, commerce, and industry. These regions offer several advantages, including lower operating costs, improving infrastructure, and investment incentives designed to attract both local and foreign businesses. The expansion of regional hubs helps ease pressure on Metro Manila, while creating fresh opportunities across the country. For foreign investors, this means greater flexibility in choosing locations and the ability to diversify operations. It also reflects a broader vision of inclusive growth, where economic progress benefits multiple regions rather than a single urban center. Finally, let's consider human capital and cultural advantages. Beyond infrastructure, policies, and economic indicators, the Philippines possesses a unique advantage that cannot easily be replicated: its people.
Filipino workers are widely recognized for their adaptability, strong communication skills, professionalism, and customer-focused mindset. Their cultural compatibility with Western markets also helps facilitate smoother collaboration and stronger business relationships. In today's global economy, success often depends not only on financial performance, but also on trust, service quality, and effective partnerships. These human qualities give the Philippines a distinct competitive edge and play a significant role in attracting foreign investment. Taken together, these strengths, from infrastructure and policy reforms to digital innovation, resilience, regional development, and human capital, help explain why the Philippines continues to attract growing interest from investors around the world. As we conclude, it's important to understand that foreign investors don't make decisions based on optimism alone. They rely on careful analysis, market trends, economic indicators, and long-term growth potential. When investors look at the Philippines today, they see a nation on the rise. They see a young, skilled, and dynamic workforce ready to meet the demands of a modern economy. They see a rapidly expanding consumer market fueled by a growing middle class. They see improving infrastructure, a thriving digital economy, and a government actively pursuing reforms to create a more competitive business environment. Ultimately, investing in the Philippines is more than a financial decision. It's a strategic investment in a country's future. It's a vote of confidence in its growth potential, its resilience, and its ability to adapt and transform in an ever-changing global economy. As international investors continue searching for the next great opportunity, the Philippines is emerging not just as a viable option, but as one of the most promising destinations for long-term investment. And that is why foreign investors are doing more than simply watching the Philippines from the sidelines. They are choosing to be part of its growth story. So, what do you think? Is the Philippines on track to become one of Asia's biggest investment success stories? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.